Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris and welcome to the team pod for this week. You'll notice a few different things, a little bit of a background change, I guess, or a schematic change. I've got a new laptop, so I should say work got me a new laptop. So lost all my scenes and stuff like that in OBS. So I'll be looking to get that onto a more consistent basis in the coming weeks. For now, I've literally just stolen Ben's, which makes it a bit easier. But I do apologise for the delay on this one. Usually I get these out pretty quickly, but we recorded the team pod, I think, Monday or Tuesday night, and I was going to do it straight after that, but then just, yeah, Screaming Baby and all of the other stuff, so just didn't have a chance to get down and record. But I am here now. If you did listen to that podcast, you would know that I actually went through how much of a shit show it actually is. The decisions I made last week, completely against what I went through, which is good and bad. There's some good, there's some bad. So I'm glad I didn't go through all the stuff I went through last week, but I think the process, what I'm doing is correct, but the decisions I'm making with the personnel is wrong. And I will go through a little bit of that as we go into this pod. Fortunately, the teams have been announced for the weekend. Rookie carnage everywhere. I didn't get too impacted from it, so I'm still looking to hopefully make some ground this week, which will be good. But we'll see how we go, and we'll go from there. So let's get into it. So 2,442 was what I scored, which is obviously not fantastic. Round rank of 25,655. And I did drop my overall rank from, I think it was like 840 or something like that to, 880 or something to 1,442. So it's gone down 500 spots in a single week, which is not great. After I really, I put in so much effort to build it up to that top 1,000, which was really disappointing. But I made decisions that I probably shouldn't have, and so let's go through them. So the big thing that I did last week was that I did boost to get out LDU. So I had to get out LDU, so that was a trade. I had to get out Hopper. Obviously, that was a trade. And I had to get out Chandler, who evidently probably wasn't a trade. I think he went like 86 or something like that. But I did trade him as well because I needed cash to move on some guys. So initially, like I said in the last podcast, the idea I was going to go in Josh Kelly. I was going to go in Bailey Humphrey, I think. And then the third in was Darcy Cameron. So the whole Darcy Cameron situation just threw me for a massive curveball. Like I lost my train of thought. I lost all my structure in terms of tradings. I just lost my bananas essentially, and just panicked, and I made bad decisions. Not necessarily bad decisions, but I think hindsight's great. My players that I brought in, went 120 plus. All of a sudden, they're great decisions, but they didn't, and now it's left holding the bag. So I looked at it and I went, okay, I don't really love Kelly. I only had 600k to play with in those situations anyway. Didn't love Kelly. Didn't really love what else it gave me in midfield only. The other one that I was looking at was Neil, and I looked at Steele, both of which went 128 plus. Neil's break even was 155, so I didn't want to bring him in. Steele had a relatively high break even. But he's obviously got his shoulder issue and his knee issue, and so I didn't really want to bring him in. And then with Darcy Cameron, when that was announced as he might be sub, he may not play a full game, blah, blah, blah. And I knew that it was going to be a soft score anyway to begin with. Didn't realize it was going to be a 61. I thought it would be like up around the 80 mark. But someone at that price, then if I can't bring in someone at 500k or under, I get hamstrung into a worse trade-off because I can't exactly quite get there. And so I was like, shit. So then I started reevaluating. I was like, okay, so what other forwards do I want in my team? And I was like, okay, well, we got DPP coming up. So I was like, I could look at Walsh. But obviously I don't have enough money to get Walsh, right? So I was like, okay, well, I can't get Walsh. I looked at Butters. So Butters was in my team for like an hour and a half. I went, look, this is my thought process. I went, well, if I'm getting Butters, why would I get Butters when Walsh is just going to be a better version of Butters? Same buy. 5-10 points per game. That's what my thought process was on Friday when I was looking at this. I was like, okay, well, there's no point in me getting Butters if I think that Walsh is going to be a better forward. He's also more unique. He has the same buy. So Yes, he's like 50k more expensive, but if he's the better option, then I'm probably better off going for it. But then if I get Walsh, like I can't afford it. He needs to be under 600k. So then I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, let's look into the numbers of Sharp versus Humphrey. What can that do? So I dropped out of Humphrey and went for Sharp because ultimately I could get Walsh and then I could get a subsidiary second pick. So I ended up getting Walsh, and then I was waiting. I still was like, look, I probably do want Darcy Cameron still, but let's wait because the club said on Friday that they'll reassess in 24 hours. And obviously that meant, say, 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. I was like refreshing, so I didn't pick anyone up that was playing earlier in the day. Butters is gone off the table. He goes his 182 on the Friday night, so I can't bring him in. I have the Saturday games. I didn't elect to choose any players from the Saturday day games because I was going to wait for that 24-hour period to see if Darcy Cameron was still in. He didn't come in. No word about it. I scoured as much information as I could. The only information I could find was that Ash Johnson was training. Didn't have any information on Ginnivan, and I just couldn't make a decision therefore. The other thing is, so because I was trading at Hopper and because of the way that my forward mid swings worked, I had to make the decision by 7:30 on Saturday night. I couldn't trade in Darcy Cameron and then change him to say DeGoey or something like that because I wouldn't have been able to bring him into the midfield. So I was restricted with what I could do, or I couldn't bring in, say, a Steele or something like that. Had to make the decision on the Saturday night. And so therefore I was like, okay, I hadn't heard anything. At 7:20, I sit back down. I'm like, all right, I've got 10 solid minutes. 4 people screaming at me, kids coming this way, my fiance is coming at me from other questions. And I literally had to say to everyone, guys, I need 10 minutes of peace and quiet. I have a serious Supercoach decision to make. And I'm just going to close the door. And I literally did that. So I don't know if any of you guys have done that before, where you've just, there's 10 minutes to the decision time. Everyone's screaming at you and you're just like, okay, I just need some private time. I literally just closed the door on everyone. So I did apologize after, but I just said, look, I just need 10 minutes. Okay. So I closed the door and I went through all my options and I'm like, look, I'm going to bring in Neil. But if I wanted Neil and Walsh, couldn't do it. If I have to go Walsh, and I really wanted Walsh because at this stage Butters had gone and I'm like, okay, well, now I definitely need Walsh because I need that forward. And I was 4K short of getting Lockie Neal with bringing in Sharp. So I couldn't do Walsh and Neal. So then I was like, okay, well, let's reevaluate. Let's try and get someone for the buys. I didn't want, again, Steele was an option that I could have got in. And I could have got him in at this point, but I was like, no, look, if I'm going to go this way, let's go with someone that's going to help my buy structure. Matt Rowell's been, serviceable. I think he worked out he had 110, 115 average since Took had gone out, which is pretty good. So he's definitely had a bump in his scoring, but I wasn't expecting lights out, but I was expecting better than what I got, which was an 87. Now, do I think Matt Rowell is a keeper? Well, I found out today that, and the first news that we've really got regarding Took is that I think he came on, I want to say 3AW, and he said that he doesn't expect, the doctor said that he doesn't expect him to be back playing AFL until maybe 5 to 6 rounds before the end of the season, which means round 17, round 18. Actually, I think, round 18, round 19 even. So, so he actually does have a bit of time there to really go ham. I don't know what that means for me. Realistically, I brought in Matt Rowell as a guy that I said, look, worst case scenario, he's going to be able to get me through the buys, and then I can reevaluate in round 15 and then buy flip him to whoever I want. Because he should hover around that 550k mark, and he should score well during that time. Now, hindsight's fantastic. What I really should have done, I'm getting confused and convoluted and blah, blah, just bring Walsh in and then just bring in Humphrey. Because Humphrey then, obviously beat him for scoring and has made 70k in the process, and he's probably going to make another 100k over the same time. And then I could, almost, with the money that I had there, I would have been able to bring in extra premiums and better premiums in between the now and then. So that's hindsight. That's probably what I should have done. My mind at the time was thinking, no, I don't want to go backwards because I'm already trading out LDU and Hopper. I don't want to go backwards in terms of my team development, and I want to continue to upgrade. So if I'm going to trade Hopper, I want to get in another premium. But I kind of feel like I've just brought in another Hopper. if that makes sense. He's averaging 102 at the moment, but that's off the back of his 165 2 weeks ago. So that was another consideration, of course. Just coming off that big game, and he had low break even. A very worst case scenario for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to get a bump in price, and then I can reevaluate. So, look, again, process was fine. Decisions, not amazing. So that is what it is. Walsh now doesn't look like he might actually not get the forward status, which would be absolutely shitty because it's not the only reason I brought him in. I mean, I did bring him in thinking, look, a 114 averaging mid, okay, that's probably better than most of my mids anyway. And I do really want him to actually play forward, to play midfield more anyway, as well. I just hope that he would have got the forward capability before he started playing midfield again. That would have been, a little bit more flexibility, could pop him forward, could bring him another mid. That would be my long-term plan if he does get that forward ability. But we'll have to see how we go. Obviously, I wasn't expecting lights out versus Collingwood. The scoring consideration wasn't really there, but I did think that he would get more than 92. I thought it would be like a soft tan or maybe a 110 or something like that. So Sharp went all right, but then was subbed in the third quarter, so at 3/4 time on 47. So he was going okay. He probably would have hit a 60, and then he subbed out and now dropped. So again, hindsight's amazing in 2020. Should have gone with my original plan. However, if I had gone with my original plan and brought in Kelly, I'd be trading anyway because I'd need to trade Josh Kelly. So I guess either way, I was probably doomed. Maybe instead of Kelly, I probably would have brought in Neil maybe at the end of that, and then that would have been all successful. Great trading. I'm a genius. Blah blah blah. I digress. It put me down. You guys probably know this as well, or feel this as well. When you make a bad decision or you follow through with something you didn't necessarily think about. I spent all weeks thinking about trades, and then I ended up with trades that I looked back on the Sunday afternoon and went, "Why did I do that?" And it really frustrated me, and I just felt shitty. Like all the start of this week, I was like, "I'm just gonna throw this away." Like I had the opportunity to captain Merritt. Did I do it? No. VC Gorn completely failed and capitulated, mainly because his disposal was bad. But in that first quarter, or maybe up to like halfway through the second quarter, I think there was, from memory, 21 ruck contests. Gorn had 14 hitouts. So he was getting the ball, he was getting the hitouts, but he wasn't converting them because they were all getting sharked. And then that was really negatively impacting his score as opposed to positively impacting it. It was really frustrating to see his score just not go anywhere in that first half. Merritt, could have captained him. I did think of him as an option. I just went with the safety of Marshall, mainly because even with everybody out and Shield as a laid out, I still just didn't know what they were going to do, because Merritt's role's unknown. Since then, Brad Scott's come out and said, look, I didn't realise how good a player Zach Merritt was. And I think now he realises he is their best midfielder. And potentially that means that he's going to get a lot more mid-time. Particularly this week, I think that he's definitely got to be in your captain options, but I'll go through that a little bit later. So let me just go through a little bit more of the team this week and how I viewed everyone. So Dawson was serviceable. He wasn't amazing. Unfortunately, they got absolutely hammered and his disposal was off. I heard that he was a little bit under the weather going into the game, but he's neither here nor there. Laird seemed to be able to just pick up disposals at will this week, and they just kind of let him go. Like they didn't really care because they were winning by so much. So nothing happened to Laird. Zeeble had an absolute banger first half and a really quiet second half. I think that, so from memory and watching the game, it looked like that Sydney put attention to him in the second quarter and they stopped allowing Zeeble to get out uncontested, and didn't allow them to try and switch the ball through Zeeble because they had him manned up at all times. That teasing distance was no longer, we'll let him get the ball. It was, we're not going to allow that kick. And so, therefore, he just wasn't able to junk like he usually would. Stewart just didn't work. The Freo's game plan was basically not kick the ball to Stewart, which if you're smart and you're playing Geelong, you just don't do. And so they were either dropping it forward of the 50 or going deep over Tom Stewart's head, and that did work in general for them. So this score is not reflective of really how good Stewart is, but how well was coached, and that victory was coached by Freo. Dacos tagged again. I picked it last week. Ed Kernow in the starting side was going to tag Dacos. Didn't like that outcome. Still managed to ton, of course. I actually don't mind Dacos this week, which is another teaser towards the captains. But we'll go through that. Did not see this coming at all from Sinclair. 160. Wow. Will Day was tagged as well by O'Neill. Not great. I think since I got him in, I think the highest score that I've had from him is like an 88. In fact, let's have a look. It hasn't been great for Will Day, to be honest. When did I bring him in? Oh, I can't even remember. Maybe after this game here? Game 7? Oh, no, it would have been here. So 97 I got. 97, 84, 88, 74. So 4 games, has not hit the ton. I haven't been amazed by him, and there are other defenders now that are sort of better than him or going well. Weddle was locked on the bench. Of course, I could not take his score, so that was unfortunate, but I know a lot of people were in the same boat. The midfield, so Bont had that little bit of a knock, and that was a bit of a salvage score, to be honest, at 112. Not too bad. Oliver, they got hammered on Friday night, and that was a pretty decent score considering. He was one of their only shining lights. Walsh, again, I found with Walsh, he got the numbers. His clangers would be right up there. A lot of the time when he was banging the ball, he was the one kicking it down Moore's throat. So it wasn't a good day for Walsh in terms of his disposal, but he was able to pick it up, which is what we know Walsh can do. He can get the ball. He just needs some support. Either some runners to be able to handball and link up and chain through that midfield, or some options up forward that can actually make a contest, which would be nice. Green's been good. Last few weeks, Green's really turned around in terms of his Supercoach scoring, which means his impact and effectiveness is great. Merritt was absolutely amazing. He was fantastic. The thing I noticed with Rowell, I just want to quickly highlight this. Really frustrating. He plays that true box-to-box mid when he's playing footy. He's not the one that sort of leads up with the football for the little short marks or anything like that. But he's the one in the corridor that he's trying to get them to push the ball through the corridor. There'll be times where he's open and he's like this, in the corridor, kick the fucking ball to me, and they just go straight down to the fucking line again. And the 2 or 3 times that they do go through him in the midfield, they score every single time. And it's not a coincidence, and I hope that, it's being brought up on tape. Hey, Rowell's in the middle here. Kick it to Rowell. He's got runners on the outside and he's open. Like, why are you continuing to go down there? Unless it's like part of Stuart Dew's game plan. He's like almost a decoy runner on midfield through transition. And it's silly, man. It's so silly. I said in the last pod that they were looking to go to Humphrey more than they were going to Rowell. It was just ridiculous. He just wins. Like, he can win his own ball. Yeah, that's great. But like, he needs some, if he's going to be a great Supercoach player, the other guys need to look for him a lot more. This killed me, this one. So Jinby, last week, obviously I traded Ashcroft instead of Jinby. And it was a slight win. Jinby got 109, Ashcroft got like 96, so like I gained 15 points. This week I lost 90 points on that trade. Absolute fucking debacle. Jinby was a real rough scenes one. Wilmot, obviously, that's his best score of the year. So glad to have that on field, which was good. But I do think now with Rich back this week, I would prefer to either loophole him or have him off field. I don't think he's going to be a good scorer this week, but you do have to hold him because his break even, I think, is down to 15. So he's set to at least make more cash this week, depending on what he scores. Yep, it is 15. Yep. So holding, Jimby can probably go, even though he's got a break even of 39. You look at down here, after that 109 drops out of his cycle, 108, which is next week, his BE is going to shoot through the roof, and it's predicted he's going to have a BE of 92. So you can technically hold him for this week if you want to gain another 10k, 20k, or whatever. Don't know what he's going to score, but he's also one that you can definitely trade out. I was hoping Cincotta would come back this week, or Cincotta, sorry. It doesn't look like that's the case. Johnson's been picked in the main team, which is good. And then we've got Sharp, who's now been dropped. So now I have 2 donuts on the mid-bench, which is not great. And the donuts keep piling up. So forward, Dunkley keeps having a bit of a resurgence. They've finally worked out how to use him, which is good. Taranto's been regularly serviceable. Gould, I'm kind of glad that this sort of 96 was a little bit unders, and mainly because a lot of people had him VC. So he's the second most popular VC in the top 1% last week, outside of Clary, who was the first. Rosie, great, but it's a 140 is awesome unless you see Zach Butters score, right? She's all super impressive in a completely different role that I thought, okay, the start of this game, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to trade him next week. Then he drops a 112 and I go, maybe not. Maybe he's bought himself a few weeks. And I think now it's kind of got to be a round 15 buy flip. You just got to hold him. Or it doesn't necessarily even have to be a round 15. It could be round 13, round 14, whatever it might be. To another player. We have to monitor his role, see what his scoring potential is going to be like in the new role, and then go from there. And Mitchell, of course, was and has been very, very serviceable. I think his break-evens now, it could be negative even. Yeah, -3. So he's set to make another, say, 50, 60K minimum, at which case we can probably flip him. So with these guys, they've got 3 more weeks. They've got 11, 12, 13. So between him and Weddle, they've got to make cash between now and then they're going to get flipped. So whatever they can make is just a bonus. Davey looks like he might be the sub, which is really frustrating. Again, this guy can't get any continuity, can't get a spike score, can't get anything. Likely scenario, I mean, between him, Roberts, Johnson, Sharp, these guys, it looks like Wardlaw and Ford are going to be correction trades from these guys, honestly. I don't know how else I'm going to do it. Don't know how I'm going to make money. I think everyone's in the same boat, so we'll have to see what we do. But yeah, not good with all these rookies bailing out. So how do we recover? I've gone through a few different options and scenarios. There's one option where I go, okay, I'm going to bring in Atkins. I'm going to bring in Humphrey and shore up my buys. Go say Jinby and Wilmot down there. But it kind of kills my cash gen. Oh, it doesn't kill cash gen. It kills my cash for now. Stops my upgrade cycle. A few different things. Discussing Oliver, for example. What's going to happen to him. Next week's really the only week you really lose out because then round 12 is a bye week, which is best 18. I'm pretty well structured for the buys, but maybe now not with the rookies the way they are. If he comes back round 13, you don't really need him to come back round 13 because you're probably already going to have 18 premiums. He probably, likely scenarios, he comes back round 15, which you're going to need him then for the buys. But do you really want to hold him during that period? He's kind of at max price. Do you want to trade him? So there are a variety of options. I initially went into this thinking, I've only got 13 trades. Best for me would be, not trading him because if I'm trading him, I'm probably trading someone like a Laird, right? So Oliver down to Laird, that nets me 60K. I can't do an upgrade anyway. So then maybe what do I do? So I've gone, okay, well, if I go Oliver to Laird and say Jinby to Humphrey, that's kind of the best case scenario. Haven't made any money, haven't made an upgrade, but I have gone 2 trades. Doesn't really sit with me quite well. So what I've decided to do is either A, I don't trade Oliver, but I still upgrade, right? So I go, say, down Jinby and Wilmot and then bring in an upgrade and then hold Oliver. Or I trade Oliver and use that cash to make an upgrade. So the other option is, say, Oliver and Jinby out. So that's probably the way that I'm going. And I've thought long and hard about, who I'm going to do in that sort of situation. The reason I'm trading is because I want to continue to upgrade. I'm running low on cash. So trading Clary out at the moment gives me a bit of flexibility short term. And long term, what I look at doing is, say, buy flipping, say, a day. Buy flipping it, maybe a Sheasel. Or potentially this other player, which I'm about to bring in. And that is going to be Ollie Wines. Now, I've been looking at Wines for a couple of weeks. I almost brought him in last week, actually, when he was 20K cheaper. That was one play that I was looking at. The 110 gives me a little bit more confidence. He did that in, I think, 67% game time. He didn't actually play that much game time for that score. And even though the CBAs were down, that could be relative towards his game time. They were just winning by so much that they just didn't really need to play him all that much. But he played very, very well. The eye test was really, really good for me against a bigger midfield. The thing that's happened with Ollie Wines this year is that he had no preseason at all. Basically came into the season like the without training, and they went, all right, well, you've come back from off-season surgery. We'll play you. We don't think you're not fit, so we're going to play you in different roles. We're not going to give you as much time on ground, etc. And they basically have worked him to full fitness. So it's taken this long to sort of develop that and work that tank back up. He's now having, season high time on ground, season high CBAs as of last week. This week, the numbers don't quite reflect that. But I do think that part of that was the way that they were absolutely killing Melbourne. They didn't really need to. So the score there is very reflective of how he's come back. I do think, look, I don't think that Ollie Wines is a lights out selection, but we've seen him go 110 over patches. In fact, I've seen him go 130 over, say, 5 games. Like, he can go big. And that's one of the benefits of getting someone like a Wines at this price, is that if he jumps on like a purple patch now, then hopefully, let's say I need to flip him or something like that, or something happens, I can get out of it. But he has been a back season specialist. He's been a guy that you can bring in for a shorter period of time, and is a guy that you can sit at, say, your M8 for the rest of the year quite comfortably. And at that price, there's not really much value outside of him that I would say that I'd be interested in looking at. I don't hate it. But what that does do is it allows me to get 560k to be able to trade in someone else. And 560k is quite a lot because you can pick up quite a good player. Now, what does that look like for me in terms of what I can bring in? Well, initially my thought process is, okay, let's get in Neil. All right. So let's get in Lockie Neil. Look at this. $200. Can you believe that? That is what I want to do. Of course I can't do it. There's no way around that. Can't bring in Lockie Neil. That is the ideal one that I wanted to bring in. So then I went, okay, well, I want to bring in Steele. So let's bring in Steele. So then I went, okay, well, let's, instead of Lockie Neil, let's bring in Jack Steele. Hold on. What's happening here? Here. Okay. Jack Steele in there. So that leaves me with 28,700, and that's good. Now, Jack Steele, obviously 135 last week. They have the Hawks this week, I believe. So a decent matchup. Though he probably does get the Connor Nash tag or run with roll, whatever you want to call it. And he has been good at restricting mids so far this year. 86 break even. Lockie Neal has a similar break even. So both of them are going to go up from whatever they score this week. Lockie Neal has a slightly different matchup, I believe. Who do Lions play this week? I want to say that it's a harder matchup. Hold on. Here we go. Adelaide, yeah. Adelaide don't really tag at the moment in their midfield, but they do have the ability to if they want to with keys. So they can restrict scoring if they desire. However, I think Neil kind of gets a free run. So look, what do they score this week? I think Steele, soft ton, maybe 110. I think Neil maybe closer to a 120 this week. So they're going to go up maybe 20, 30k. I kind of just got to let that ride because obviously then they have another week and I need to make more cash. So I get 2 weeks to make up the cash that they are going to gain in 1 week. And that's what I got to try and hope. So I've got to hope that I can get enough cash out of, say, Weddle and Mitchell and Wilmot over the next couple of weeks that I'll be able to pick these guys up. Okay? That's the plan. What I've decided to do instead is a little bit different. I've actually decided to bring in a defender, and that defender is going to be James Sicily. So I've been off Sicily all year. Rowell, I didn't love. They've been throwing him around a little bit. He's been losing kickouts, blah, 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 blah. Now he's gone back-to-back 134s. He had an interview saying that he's actually moved back to his third tall role that he likes and prefers. And that's music to any Supercoach's ears. If Sicily's in the same role that he's in last year, he's going up, up, and up, and I'm not going to be able to pick him up after this week. Break even of 49. I think that it's the right week to bring him in. Saints do give up a lot of points to defenders, a la Zeeble. If they're going to let Sicily do what Zeeble did, this could be a 150-plus game. He's definitely a VC option this week as well, which I'd consider. And I think that they play relatively early. I'll bring that up later when we're looking at the VC and Cs. But I don't mind Sicily as a VC option this week. But that looks like what I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring in Sicily and wine. So look, I call that one premium, call that two premiums, whatever you want to call it. To me, that's an upgrade. That now means that I have 20 premiums, but I have a few question mark premiums, and that is something that I need to address moving forward. So Day, obviously questionable premium. Rowell, questionable premium. I love my back six. I think that's arguably the best back six that you can get at the moment. So I do love that. The midfields. So if Walsh gets forward status, I can move him forward. And then, so what I really lack moving forward to the end of the season is Laird and Steele. Steele and Neil, who I'm looking to probably get in round 13 and round 14, like maybe 1-1, depending on cash flow situations, rookies, have I generated enough cash, blah, blah, blah. That will then complete my team. And then I don't have Clary and I don't have Laird, who are the two that are going to probably hurt me long season. Also don't have English still. So kind of those three guys are guys that could hurt me long term, that I'm kind of hedging against with my full team. So yeah, Walsh would move forward, and I've got a space here. Now, having a look at how I'll structure up this week, I will actually be moving Wilmot into defence for Dawson probably, or whatever it may be, so that I can loophole him using Constable with Weddle. So Weddle plays on the first, they play the first game on the Saturday. So when I see his score before I can lock it in, I'll be looking to not field Wilmot if I can. As I said before, I don't exactly love Wilmot's role with Rich in the team. I think that there's probably another 50 inbound as opposed to an 80 score. So if I can try and not field Wilmot, I won't. I'm happy fielding Mitchell, of course. I think that, again, good matchup for defenders. So all three of those guys there. Day maybe goes head-to-head with, say, a Byte. He might get the Bytel tag if Bytel's playing. I have to look a little bit further into that. Freo play early, so I can still loop Johnson here on the if I need to. And then what I can do is I can... I've got Chincotta here, so I can move him back to Constable if I want to take his score, or vice versa, blah, blah, blah. So there are definitely options that I can look at. My forward line is where I really lack. I don't really have any cover down here in the forward line now. So I'm really hoping that that Walsh can come through. I can push out Mitchell to the wing, to the pine, and then start a loopholing process with those guys too. And that is the plan. Now, in terms of my VCC, as I said, Sicily looks decent at the moment. He could be one that I'm definitely looking for. The other one is Merritt. So Merritt plays on the Saturday night, I believe. Yep. Now, O'Neill has been dropped, which is who they used as a tagger this week. They do have some more experience coming in. I believe Hearn and Yo are into the team this week, etc. But yeah, I do believe that means that he could be off the leash and off the chain. I don't mind that VC. He might be more of a captain option as a safe. I mean, how often does he go 160? That's not often. Whereas I can see like a big spike score coming out of Sicily. So maybe that's the VC, and I just go with the C on Merritt. Though I don't mind Dacos at Marvel on the Sunday afternoon. Shields is out, so a potential tag there is gone. However, they still have Howe in the team, and they still have Simpkin. So both of those guys have done run with roles. Simpkin has played forward, so that maybe they go Simpkin forward tag on Dacos, or maybe Daniel Howe takes that role too. So I still don't mind it, but I think if I'm a betting man, which sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, I think this is the way you go. VC Sicily into C Merritt. You could also look at Goulden on the Friday night. Obviously had a really big game against Carlton in the preseason. He could be primed to do that again, so I wouldn't mind that as a VC, but surely Carlton bounce back. I can't imagine them just letting him just do whatever he wants like they did in the preseason game. They would be aware of it now. and they might put a bit of attention into him. Maybe a Kurnow tag goes Goulden's way. So, yeah. So that's how I line up. Future plans. So obviously now we've only got 2 rookies on field, but next week we have the bye. So next week is a downgrade week. So for me, it's about making cash. It's about Ford. It's about George Wardlaw, potentially Fahe. I've been thinking about just bringing Fahe in, even though he's round 15. Surely he gets a debut at some point. But I need to generate some cash. Now the only thing is, Wilmot will be ready to go likely next week. But there's not really anyone else that I have ready to go. So I might have to sort of just cut a Chincotta, cut a Sharp early to go to Wardlaw, even though I'm actually spending money there. Maybe it's a cut Davey time. These guys, unfortunately, just haven't really hit the peaks that I would like them to. At least with Chincotta, if I'm getting rid of Chincotta, I've got a little bit of money out of that. But yeah, I'm not overly sold by that. And also, I do think that he probably does. He must be close to getting recalled. Yeah, we'll have to see how we go with that. Once I've got that cash, again, as I said, Steele and Neil will be the 2 that I'm looking at getting in after the round 12 bye. And then it's all about buy flipping, and it's all about trying to maximize, get the best out of the guys that I can. So round 15, how do I get Laird? How do I get Clary? Is that Harry Sheasel out? Is that Will Day out? Is it Rowell? Do I trade Rowell and Sheasel? Or do I move Day maybe to D8 and try and get in one of those guys, M8, and try and get in one of those guys with what I've got, what I've been able to generate in that time. So that's what I'll look like. Hopefully I'll be full premium with 7 trades remaining. I don't know if I can get there quite. I mean, Wilmot and Weddle will be able to beat Neil. That's no question. Mitchell is one side of that, but the other side to getting to Steele, I kind of needed Chincotta to be named this week to get 2 more games, to get up to 260, 270, so I can make 150k. Mitchell, I think, probably gets to low 300, 320-ish. So, yeah, I need as much cash as I can. Yeah, we'll just have to see how we go. But anyway, that was probably a little bit longer than I anticipated recording for. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, post them in the comments, and I look forward to a good round 11 and hopefully a good bye round. So good luck with your teams as well, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.